Hey guys, Ken Thiessen here from Accuracy Development Solutions. Going to talk a little bit today about truing work on actions, specifically, your classic Remington 700, popular platform. Obviously, anybody who's been doing these or building custom rifles, these actions can stand to be improved upon. Just truing up all the surfaces and paying special attention to them. This one specifically was brought to me by a customer wanting me to do a build. This action has been used. It's got a lot of time on it, a lot of wear. You can probably see down in there, lots of wear on the lugs. The surface isn't clean. Threads will need to be redone. Aside from that, this one's got a little bit of an issue on the bolt face as well too. I'm not sure if you can see, but right around the firing pin hole there, it's actually recessed. Like it's been worn away. So either it had some leaky primer pockets at one point, it's seen some erosion or high pressure loads. Anyways, we've got gonna start on this here and kind of got it chucked up in my fixture here. We're gonna true the bolt. We're gonna true the action, get everything lined up perfectly center on bolt bore. So I've already got this bolt chucked up in here, and we've got it trued up as best we can. You can have a quick look. That's a half thou dial indicator and just a little tiny wiggle on the inboard there, and we'll bring it out to the outboard side just behind the lugs, and you can tell we've got just a tiny little wiggle on the needle on a half thou indicator. So that's pretty true there. That's about as close as I can get this thing right now. Obviously, this being dictated that these surfaces that I'm running my indicator on are true, which should be fairly close. Like I said, they're within a half thou. So I feel fairly confident that we can clean up the back side of the lugs, and we'll clean up this face, just trying to remove minimal amount of material as we can. You've got to be really careful moving material from the back side of the lugs and the face, because we get into primary extraction issues, which some of these actions are not very good to begin with, so you want to be careful. But we'll try and walk you through some steps here as I am doing this job, just to show you guys exactly what we do here to make one of these things a lot better than what it was. So stay tuned, and I'll let you know how this happens. All right, guys, so I've taken off some material off a couple of the surfaces here. We've got the back of the lugs cleaned up. It's kind of hard to see, but cleaned that up. Just took a little bit of a kiss just to make sure those are square. They weren't too bad on the back of the lugs, surprisingly. The front side, however, as you can see, we had to take off about 4 thou total to clean up that face. So not only did we have the low spot around the firing pin hole, but it wasn't flat either. So we've taken some material off that. The nose of the bolt and the front side of the lugs, not really that big of a deal. They're not a critical dimension, other than I took a little bit off just to clean it up and make sure we've got correct clearance when we cut the counter bore in the barrel for this. And I'll pull this bolt out and give you a little bit of better look at the backside there. But we've got the surfaces cleaned up, so the bolt will be almost complete. I'll do some finish lapping in the action when I get the action done, just to make sure we got good contact, and we'll go from there. Okay guys, so next step here, we've got the action to do. Obviously a few critical spots on the action. Recoil mounting surface, threads down its sides, going to be the recoil lugs as well too. You'll see I've got some bushings installed. These are tapered bushing, and they're specifically for the precision ground rod that I'm going to use to indicate this. This fixture's got a bunch of different jacking screws in it, so we can get this thing perfectly center on the bolt bore diameter. So these taper bushings that we use are snug fit, and they will hold all of our tooling and everything exactly center of the bolt bore. And this will allow us to indicate this action perfectly to center of that. We'll use the same bushings as a guide for our action thread tap, which you can get these from Manson Precision specifically. You know, these ones are for the various firearms they sell. This one's Remington 700, and you'll notice this is oversized by 10 thou. So your standard Remington 700 action threads are 1/16 by 16 pitch, 1.062 diameter. This will bring it 10 thou oversize, so that'll bring our final size to. So we'll be able to set this thing up perfectly square, and this will allow our tooling to be set up as well with the action thread tap. And this is 10 thou oversized, so we'll take your thread diameter from 1.062 thou to 1.072. So that's going to allow us to clean up those threads and make sure they're concentric with the bore. And we'll do the action face where the recoil lug's going to set up, and the lugs as well, and we'll get this trued up. So I'll get this all ready to go, and we'll start making some cuts. Alright, so we got the action squared up, it's trued in the centering jig, and we cut the threads with a tap and just started to take some material off this face. So I just kissed it and gave it a quick pass, and I threw some layout fluid on it so you can actually see, you know, where it's touched on this side, but nothing on this side. So the face of this action was not perfectly square to the bolt bore, and this is where your recoil lug and barrel will seat up to. And if this surface is not square, like this one is, technically when everything's under torque, your barrel chamber will be not set up concentric to bolt bore. So one of the critical surfaces that you want to make sure that we keep clean, and we know that this is going to be perfectly centered with the bolt bore because we took the time, set this thing up. We had less than 1 thou run out in our, actually sorry, 1/10 thou run out on our indicator. So we know we got this thing lined up perfect. Trying to keep everything tenths of a thou. Real small dimensions here to make this perfect. So we've got the action operation done, bolt operations done. So if you have a quick look, you know, we've got surface, mating surfaces are all clean and true. Threads are recut oversized, cleaned those up, squared those up. You look down inside those, nice, clean, square surfaces now. That's going to mate up perfectly with our bolt. Squared up everything on the back side of the bolt, as well as the face. One thing to keep in mind that some people forget, especially when finishing, you know, a completed rifle build, you know, maybe they get the action from back from their smith, maybe they've done it themselves, but your front scope base screws, pay special attention to those when you're mounting your scope base, especially if a receiver like this has been trued. We've had to go oversize on the threads. There is a very, very, very good possibility that your front scope base screw is going to protrude into the threads and bind up. So when you go to mount your scope base, everything assembled, it's actually going to bottom out on the tenon threads before it bolts down and snugs down on the scope base. So there's a good chance that those are going to have to be shortened. Pretty simple to do, easy to do at home with a vise and a small file. You can, you know, just take a couple threads off the bottom of the screw, shorten it up. That way you're going to have clearance. It's not going to be binding on the tenon screws in there and causing you problems with a loose scope base or something afterwards. So there we go. Action is trued up, all the critical surfaces, bolts trued. We're going to get ready to spin up a rifle barrel here, get it chambered up, and get this customer on its way. All right, guys, so we're getting towards the end of this project here now. As you would have seen previous, We've trued up the bolt on all the surfaces, backside in the face as well. We trued up the action, so bolt lugs, action face, the threads. So you've already lapped the lugs a little bit. Make sure they got good contact in there. We're good there. Also, one thing I didn't mention was the recoil lug. The customer wanted to reuse his factory recoil lug. Of course, these are not square. I surfaced each side on a flat plate to get it good and flat. Chucked it up and machined the inside diameter good and square. So we're good there. And we finished the chambering work. Threaded oversized threads, counter bore for the Remington 700, and this is chambered in a 6XC for the customer as per his request. So this will begin to be a nice little package getting put together here, and we're getting real close to final assembly. I've just got to switch out the barrel, turn it around. We got to cut this to size for the customer requested length and crown it, and we will be in good shape. This thing will be ready to go.